and I do that even when I was driving, because I still would have that bit of like intensity when I was driving. I'm being in the fast lane and I'm like, oh God, I feel something coming up, and I'm like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, right. Taking it, looking the bull right in the eyes, the horns. We're saying just taking it head on.
Yes.
And embracing it, and then moving through it. You know, I know that that's one of the ways you can just kind of sit it down and go, okay.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you want? And instead of running away from it, and then it just starts to build up in your spirit and inside of you, which is, it'll be ready to come out at any moment.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I feel like these, people sometimes with these things, they want this like one size fits all, and it's like, and it really is playing around with these things. And that it took me months of exploring these things to actually find things that worked and resonated with me. And I've talked to other people who have panic attacks, and that doesn't resonate with them to think of like welcoming it. That is like the most terrifying thing they can think of doing. It's like, no way am I going to welcome it, and they just can't get behind that.
That's right.
Because there is a bit of a surrendering to that.
Right. And it's a fear, which is what controls most of us, and is not knowing, the uncertainty.
Yes.
And it's scary. It can be scary, but if you're like brave enough to just face it head on, you're going to have a breakthrough. You're going to deal with it right then and there.
Exactly.
Because that's what happens when you're facing your fears. Anything that you're feeling or upset about or mad, whatever. Only way you get through them, is to face them.
Exactly.
So I think that's awesome, just having the courage. I mean, you did a whole research on yourself, on what what it was, what is it that you felt you needed, what kind of tools, what can I do to help myself?
Exactly.
Am
I doomed? It was this feeling
of,
oh my God, it's my life.
Am I gonna really just cross the bridge or whatever? So I give you that. Like that's a big deal, because most people we're moving through our journey, and some of us are doing the best we can, and some of us are just flowing. Like I don't know this has happened, so but the best thing to do to get to the other side, you cannot get to the other side of the tunnel unless you go through it.
Yes, exactly.
It's the way, and it is the most, I tell you, painful trip, but it feels good to get to the other side. It feels good. It's not easy.
No,
it's not an
easy
thing. It's not an easy thing. But you have that, and I give it to you. You got the courage, to you facing it, literally facing it. Like, okay, and that's scary alone.
Yeah. Yes. And the welcoming part took some time to get used to. Just gonna welcome my panic like an old friend. That's weird. I don't want this friend. I don't look at it as a friend.
Do not need.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. So I think that that was really, really helpful. And actually, it's interesting, that helped me for pretty much 13 years of just being. I just never had a panic attack again, because every single time that I would sense when it would kind of start to go into that direction, I would feel like, I feel that feeling, and then that's when I would start using my tools.
Right.
That's when I would start welcoming it. That's when I would start. There's also another thing I would do in my car. I would like blast the AC, because if I'm like cold, I feel like that like distracts me from getting into that emotional mind. Now I'm like, now it's like, now I'm too cold to even think about panic or think of, to even settle into that feeling. And especially because when you have a panic attack, your body starts to heat up.
Yes.
So it's almost like you're counteracting that. But I will say that when there's a whole thing that went down, so 13 years later, just recently, there was a whole thing that went down, and I actually had a panic attack again, and it had been, like I said, 13 years since I'd had one.
Wow.
And it happened
and
again.
when was this?
This was in April.
Oh, this past April?
Yeah.
And that was the first time in 13 years.
Yep. And it was
What triggered it?
It was because I had a issue at work, and basically it was like the way it went down is like kind of a long story, but basically, let's just say that they didn't treat me very kindly when I decided that I wanted to put in my notice, and they basically just went, "You can leave right now." And for me, I'm thinking my notice is 2 weeks. I can say goodbye to clients.
Yes.
I can close things out, right? I'm in the middle of a lot of like intense work with clients. So for me, I was pretty stunned by that. And because of that, that night, I started to kind of spin. I remember laying in bed and I was spinning, and I was very upset that day, obviously, because I was emotional, I was angry, I was crying, I was just like, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, I'm so stunned right now. It's such a shock to my system, because I thought for sure, even if I'm putting in my notice, that I would have time to like slowly move out. So that night I was just going over it, and I'm spinning and the thoughts and trying to put things together, trying to understand again. Meaning making machine. So it's trying to make meaning out of what's happening. How did that happen? What happened? What did I do wrong? What blah, 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 right? Where's their part? Where's my part? And so then it got to a point where it became so overwhelming that I started to second guess myself, and the way I even like put in my notice. I was second guessing like the wording that I used, like maybe the wording that I used wasn't right, blah, blah. So then all of a sudden I just like, oh my God. Oh, and my boyfriend now has never seen me have a panic attack. So it was like, he didn't understand what's going on. All of a sudden I'm waking him up going, oh my God, and now I'm thinking, and he's like, it's okay, you're okay. I'm like, I'm not okay. Just like fly out, and it didn't help that I'm half asleep, because this didn't happen where, you know, I'm fully awake. I woke up, and then my thoughts started firing. So the tools that I'm talking about that I have always used, I've been fully awake. This time I was in that weird, just woke up, half asleep, middle of the night. Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like that part of my brain, the logical side, wasn't really online yet. So it was almost like, you know, and that's what I need in order to bring me back. So so it was just purely emotional, and then I just like flew out of bed, and I'm going, I need to get some fresh air, I need to go outside, because I started to feel that feeling of dread, that feeling of, I'm gonna die, I'm about to die right now. Yeah, I'm losing control. And so I ran outside expecting the air to be cool. It wasn't. I was like, this is just like inside, great. So then I'm just standing there in my PJs.
Okay. It's not cool out here, all right. Just
back to the drawing board. So, you know, I'm out there and I'm trying to, again, center myself, and it's not working. And then luckily I start to come back online, and I go, I need a shock to my system. Like I need like obviously I'm in shock in a way, like, but I need a different type of shock, something that's going to take me out of these emotions in my mind and whatever. So I actually just ran to the freezer, grabbed some ice cubes, and just held onto them tight, and just felt that feeling of the ice cube, and then it's like getting more and more freezing in my hand, and that honestly like slowly started to bring me right back into my body, and I was like, okay,
so interesting.
Here I am. I'm back, and I haven't had one since then. Luckily, like there have been moments, trust me, because now that, you know, it's like a cycle. So since I've had one, now it's always a little bit on my mind, just, you know, it's just inevitable. It's like it's looking for the threat. So now I fear it a little bit, but I have my tools, you know, and I put it into perspective of like, I was half asleep when that happened. You know, that normally wouldn't have taken place. So yeah.
And it freak you out even more because, you know, you're most vulnerable.
Yes. Exactly. Wow. Exactly. So that was another, and it was another instance where it was not necessarily, because I was obviously planning on leaving this job, I put in my notice, it was the way it went down.
That's right.
And it's the emotional impact that it had. And again, that was the part that, you know, it wasn't like I was ignoring it, I was processing it, I was crying about it, I was angry about it.
Yeah.
It's just the mind started to come in to be like, what'd you do? Did you do something wrong? Did you email correctly? Like, what was your wording like? I don't know if your wording was correct. Maybe that's why they did that. Oh, maybe there's something else going on here. You know, it's just like, and then overthinking, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That'll get us every time. Overthinking. And I always say, when you get into that space, I got in a space of anxiety
Mhm.
during COVID on the road, and
Yes.
and what helped. And I don't get anxiety.
Mhm.
I don't. I still can't tell you where it came from.
Mhm.
I was loving the road during COVID.
Yeah.
If you didn't get to
right?
drive during COVID, I feel so bad for you.
I know.
So and then I was driving in, and then things got weird, but that's another conversation. But as soon as I said I'm the master of my own thoughts and emotions, it went away.
Nice.
But before that, the time before that, I had to pull over and meditate because I was
Mm.
tripping.
Yes.
I don't know what was happening to me. I'm like, all of a sudden I felt like I didn't know how to drive. It was, I don't know.
Interesting.
Something was happening.
Yeah. That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
that's very
so I
similar.
pulled over and I was just like, this is interesting.
Right? This is new.
How's this? This is very new. And the time I was talking to my girlfriend, I said, you know what? I'm gonna have to hang up now. And I was just like, something's happening to me. I pulled off and I just meditated for a few minutes, and I get back on the road. But something was happening, like you were
Mhm.
saying. I didn't experience it, but
Mhm.
I said I'm the master of my own thoughts and emotions.
Mhm.
Just carried it right on away.
Wow.
So I was feeling it coming when I was driving. I don't know, something weird. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea, but
It was also COVID. And I feel like
yeah.
that was
Probably
everyone's
in my
subconscious.
psyche,
Yes, exactly. It's going off.
And then, but it was weird. It was interesting.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give someone else that feels the same way and that's going through the same thing that you're going through? What would you say to them?
So I would say, first off, these are just thoughts, right? Like, don't believe your thoughts, and that's one of the biggest things, because I feel like our thoughts constantly.
We live there.
Yeah, we live there. We feel like that rules our life, and that's who we are. And if we think it, it is, you know. And it's like, no, there's plenty of bullshit going on in our mind that is not factual. Plenty. So there's that, and I feel like when we feel like we're starting to spiral with our thoughts, or we're going, and then we're dissecting and whatever, and we're overanalyzing, it's just as simple. And I always think of this SNL skit because he goes, just stop. And it's just, you know, it's so simple. And the whole joke in that is that that's not really helpful for people. I will say in this case, it is. When you have those thoughts that are intrusive, or they're starting to hijack you and they're taking you on a ride, it's just the awareness to go, stop. Nope.
I love it.
It's just cutting that off, because that circuitry is starting and that neural pathway is starting. And what happens is each time that you allow it to just hijack you and take you on this ride, it's going, cool. And now it's getting easier and easier for us to hijack you and take you on this ride. And until you break that, until you start to, and it takes some time. If you've done it, you know, for years, it's going to take you time to have to like, we're going in a different direction. Nope, we're not going there. Right? And it's kind of like your mantra.
I love the way you put that, actually. I love the way you articulate it.
Yeah.
It's very simple the way you put it for people to understand exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, because it can be, you know, a little like complicated, and you know, like I said, it what works for me may not work for someone else, but it's all about, you know, just go and explore, go and see what resonates. There's so many tools out there now. You know, there's one that some people really love. Apparently, it's very effective, and it's kind of like this idea of tapping into your senses. So it's grounding yourself, right? So it's like, so if I'm starting to feel panic